Mo Samuels, welcome to the Development by David podcast. How are you, mate?
What is happening, mate? I'm absolutely fantastic. My heart rate is slightly elevated because I've just ran from skydiving straight into this podcast in my office. So apologies for being late, mate.
Mate, when you told me you were skydiving today, it made me think of what the first question I wanted to ask you, and it was, what is the typical day in the life of Mo Samuels if one exists?
Okay. I would say the typical day in the life of Mo Samuels is very mundane and not as exciting as you might think it would be. I kind of spend the average day, right? If all things go well, I'm prioritizing sleep at the minute, but if all things go well, I'll get up about 7:30. I'd love to say like 5:30, but nah. I get up about 7:30, read, obviously, I'll shower, read, meditate, get a few steps and go for a little walk. And then I'll be majority of the day, I'll be at my laptop doing work, kind of admin stuff, planning, editing, recording videos, which I would say makes up the majority of my day. Is kind of like office based stuff, but I can do that from anywhere, which is quite cool. So I will take time off. I will work from abroad, and then yeah, the main thing like my lifestyle gives me is just flexibility.
How would you introduce yourself if I were to ask you who is Mo Samuels today in 2023?
I'm just a man that's looking to pursue something meaningful that will have a positive impact on myself and others, and I feel like has meaning. I go to the gym. I like to enjoy life. I like to grow and improve. It's literally it, like physically, mentally. I'm all about trying new things, peak experiences, and then just pushing myself outside my comfort zone to become better and just improve my reality. Basically, like it's a difficult one. The question is so broad. And I'm not on some like altruistic quest to single-handedly better the world, I feel like a lot of the time I just want my existence and those around me to be better, and I just document what I do, and the fact that people sometimes take something from that is fantastic. And then obviously there's that part where I want to have an impact as well. But yeah.
Do you know what I love about that, man? Is like when I ask that question, it's deliberately vague and deliberately open because I
Mm,
like to see how different people introduce themselves. And a lot of people who are perhaps in the business world or quite egotistical will say like their titles, like, oh, I'm a
mm,
CEO of X, or I am Scotland's richest man, or I am the CEO of Sony Music, for example. And that's not who they are, it's what they are.
yeah.
Whereas you introduce yourself as who you are, like your legacy,
Mm,
the kind of dent that you want to leave on the universe. And people might, from the outside in, see you online and think you're quite like egotistical or confident or whatever else in between. But the fact that you introduce yourself in such a profound, like societally conscious way was actually quite refreshing, man.
Thank you very much, dude. And I am egotistical, 100%. They're definitely egotistical. But I try to be as aware of it as possible. Like I think that's the main thing. If you're unaware and oblivious to it, then it causes problems. But if you can kind of be like, okay, yeah, I'm a bit egotistical. Um, yeah,
I mean, it can be used as a tool in certain environments as well. I mean, you've got where you are, like over 100,000 YouTube subscribers,
mm,
millions of plays for leaning in and like weaponizing that ego in the right way.
yeah,
I was saying to you before we hit record, uh, like I feel like you're like a virtual friend because much like your other subscribers, I've watched you for maybe like 6 or 7 years. And when I
yeah.
was saying when I had booked this in with you, mate, I was saying to my old gym partner who doesn't, or gym buddy who doesn't go to the gym anymore, oh, remember that Mo guy that we used to watch in your mom's living room, like the transformational videos, like he's coming on the podcast, and he was like more impressed by that than like any of the other guests I've had on because it was so relatable to him because he also watched a lot of those videos. And you must get that quite a lot, mate. Like when you hear those testimonies of people saying, "Oh, I've followed you for 4 or 5 years," and they almost like congratulate milestones alongside you. How does that make you feel, man?
Oh, bro, it's so cool. It's one of the reasons that I keep doing social media or keep pushing it and trying to grow and wanting to do more of it. Like one of times where I've wanted to quit or be like, oh, I've done this for so long, I'm kind of over it, and what maybe things aren't going my way. It's like the fact that I can meet people and I always say like half of the interaction is already there or half of the relationship is already there when you know someone that's on when you know someone online that shares their actual life, their real life, and you follow them for any period of time, I feel like the same thing as well when I watch people online. It's almost as if half of that friendship is already there, if that makes sense. So it's so cool that I can meet someone I've never met before. Say if they followed me for a few years, or they just follow me generally on YouTube. YouTube's a specific one because YouTube we really get to know a person, I think, or podcasts like this as well. And then it's like we just click, or we can just have a conversation straight away, or we can spend the day together, or spend a few hours together, or do something. And it's like that connection is already there, and it's so cool, man. It's so cool to have that. So fucking cool.
It's awesome, man. One thing that dragged me into absorbing your content like 5, 6, 7 years ago when I first started my gym transformation was your online transformation videos. Like
Yeah.
you always showed like a starting point, usually kind of exemplifying your condition and how like that riddled you at times, and how you'd bounced back from that and transformed your physique into something that was bigger, leaner, stronger, more shredded, and more aesthetic to girls, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that I wanted to use this podcast for, man, is like not showing, because you've showed the physical transformation like so promptly and so available online. I want to show like your kind of mental transformation or your kind of character transformation. So in line with that, man, I'd like to take it back to the beginning. Like, what were you like as a kid?
Well, I was a little shit basically. Like like kind of in school, I think I would get stuff done. Like I would do fairly well academically. But I would also misbehave and get in a lot of trouble for misbehaving, or I'd be like I wouldn't say so much the class clown if I was like really, really young, but I'd just be like disruptive and hyperactive. When I was younger, I was told I have ADHD. When I was much younger, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was never on medication or anything, and the extent of it, like I think every man, or the majority of men, you know what I mean, especially when they're younger, like, yeah, you have ADHD, probably could be diagnosed with ADHD. But that kind of summarizes my childhood, you know. But even though like I did mess around and I did get in a lot of trouble, I kind of grew out of it as I got older, like into later years of school. I would always put the work in where it mattered, like exams and other things. Like I really, really worked fucking hard when I was like, especially when I was getting like 16, 17, 18, like would really, really revise a lot. I'd have my fun, but then I'd also slave away to a revision book.
If I remember rightly, correct me if I'm wrong, you went on to study marine biology
Yes.
at university in Plymouth.
Yes.
Am I recalling that correctly? Right, okay, that's
Yeah,
that's
marine biology and oceanography, so same thing. It's just a little bit
close.
of a sprinkle of
Pizzazz on it. I like it. Like that's a very untraditional route for like a kind of young man. What made you choose that, man?
Well, ever since I was a child, I just had this like fetish over sea creatures. Just the sight of a fish, like Jesus Christ. No, and so this is gonna be a bit of a long story. Basically, I'll try and condense it. So I there was many things that I wanted to be. Like there's a few career paths when I was younger. Obviously, everyone goes through phases of wanting to do different things. I was interested in studying medicine. I was interested in joining the military, the Marines. That's something I wanted to do because I had a few friends that did that. But due to my leg, I never thought I'd be able to handle the hours on my feet as a doctor, like in the training. So the condition I have in my leg, lymphedema, I can't stand up for long periods of time, or it swells up. So that was kind of out of the question. The whole Marines military thing, I wouldn't get past the medical. Absolutely no chance. So that was out of the question as well. And then that just kind of left me having to, I don't know, just lean into something that I enjoyed and something that I was able to do. So I had this idea that I would go and film like BBC type documentaries, like specifically Blue Planet. So I started on a path to get the skill set that would enable me to become an underwater cinematographer. I noticed that a lot of the guys who were working in that area or on things like Blue Planet had a science-based background, as well as being videographers. So when I was younger, I've always been into filmmaking, like since I was around probably 8, 9, 10. I had my first camera and started making these stupid videos. So I've always enjoyed that. Made surfing videos growing up, made like jackass, like stupid jackass videos growing up, all kinds of things, man. So I've always loved that filmmaking aspect, and that's kind of something I could like maybe drove me down that path. I grew up in Cornwall as well, so surfing was like pretty much the only thing that I did down there. Like as a kid, I used to surf like every day after school, go in the sea. Used to be in the surf club. Used to do all kinds of stuff. So that kind of, I guess, that upbringing or childhood led me to the decision to pursue underwater cinematography. And I was good at science as well. That was kind of my thing. Like, I was pretty rubbish at maths, but I was very good at science. So I went to university, found the best one I could, which was the University of Plymouth. We have a very good marine sciences department. Managed to get the grades for that. And then I completed a degree in marine biology and oceanography. And then whilst I was doing that in the term time, I always get mixed up. In the summertime, when I was off uni, I would go up to London and work on films to get experience in the film industry. And yeah, I also do commercial diving as well, kind of as like a part-time job, just to build up that skill set to get me to a place where I could do underwater cinematography. And yeah.
I've got so many like golden threads I want to pull on. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah, man.
I'm playing like post-it note rain. When choosing marine biology, like how supportive was your mum, for example, when choosing that? Could she understand like how rewarding of a career that was for you? Because it doesn't really sound like a sensible route for like a normal kid, like going to law or be an accountant or be like working in an office, you know?
My mum has always been incredibly liberal in terms of letting me do like whatever the fuck that I want. Not so much not so much as a child. Like, she'd obviously discipline me and wouldn't just let me run around naked like a crazy person. But she's never been like, oh, you have to do this, this, or this. And I don't know. I think I was the first person in my family to go to university as well. So she was probably just happy for the fact that I was going to university. And also, come on, marine biology, it's like STEM, like science, technology, engineering, maths, isn't it? Is that, yeah, it's something that's on paper like a bachelor of science or a scientific degree, or if you did a doctorate, is a good thing to have. So she was pretty supportive of it. But I've always been very independent as well, you know. It's not like, because I've not come from money, or I've not come from, I grew up with a single mum, and then she had my two twin sisters. And then she's always raised like three of us by herself. I've never had a lot of money, so I've never like relied on anyone for anything per se. Like, obviously I was supported like by my mum and my dad, although they're divorced, like, I'd still doing stuff with them. But it's not like they would invest a lot or be able to invest tens of thousands of pounds in my education or courses or anything like that. So because I feel like I've worked since I was 12, 13 with my dad, and then worked when I was 15 in restaurants, etc., etc. I've just kind of been very independent financially, and then independent in the decisions that I'm making. And my parents have just been supportive every step of the way, really. And my dad also was the person that got me into surfing and other things. So he was very keen for me to do marine biology or something like that. So he's probably very supportive of it, man.
Do you think your kind of socioeconomic or your kind of financial background is why you're so like hardworking and willing to do what others won't? I'm not sure. We were speaking about Chris Williamson before we hit record. He has this clip from Rogan where he talks about something called the region beta paradox. Have you seen that clip?
Is it about? You tell me.
He says where basically when things are, the essential analogy is like when things are harder for you, they are better because it forces you to make a change.
Yeah.
I think the analogy he uses is if you were to travel a mile, you would walk it, but if you were to travel 2 miles, you would drive it. So the harder distance actually encourages you to take an easier route or a quicker route or a more accelerated route.
Yeah.
So essentially the concept is it's better when things are harder because it forces you to make a more profound change. And because perhaps you come from a background that doesn't have much money, you're a single parent family, you're maybe an older brother to two sisters, perhaps I'm making an assumption that that's why you are so hardworking, because you've come from, you know what like having no money looks like or feels like, or the lack of support maybe feels or looks like in terms of financial support.
Mm.
I'm just curious to know whether that's manifested itself into like I don't know, a fear of financial insecurity, or has prompted you to work harder.
Certainly, I'd say it's probably the predominant factor in that. Um, you know, people that don't come from much, they want to do quite well, and I feel like when you have everything, or when you're in a very comfortable position in life, there's no catalyst for growth. There's no reason to that you want to change. It's like for example, I kind of see it in Conor McGregor. You know, like he came up, he was fucking ruthless. Like he was thirsty, he was hungry, and then he gets to the point where he's like got the $multi-hundred-million house, the Lamborghini yacht. He sleeps in his like soft cotton sheets. And is he going to be at the gym at 4 a.m. every day when it's freezing cold, like training his ass off when he doesn't want to be there and he's got a family at home and like a fire going and like a chef cooking meals for him? Probably not, man. Probably not. It's like the there's another analogy. I can't remember it, but it's like if you like the whole Rocky kind of boxer, like coming from nothing, you know, is like they haven't got shit. They want to make a name for themselves. They want their life to change. They're like running through the rain and the freezing cold, like in the pitch black, and it's like because they're so desperate to change their environment or to change the circumstances that they find themselves in. And I feel like if you're sleeping on those fresh linen sheets, you just don't have that same drive or mentality. Or it's very, you can do, but it's difficult to get that. Because even now, man, I found like I would pull some crazy hours. Like I find that getting comfortable and getting complacent, it can very easily be the killer of those dreams that you might still have. Do you know what I mean? You get close to where you want to be, and then you get a bit of comfort, you get a bit of complacency, and then you kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit because you're like, oh, this is nice. Oh, this is nice. And then when reality, you need to keep it firm down and just be realistic about your situation where you want to be.
One thing that I found a lot of comfort in, mate, when watching your stuff was like, you're a couple years older than me, and when I started watching your stuff, you're just a university student. You didn't have many followers at the time.
Yeah.
You would document like going to university, prepping your meals, going to the gym, and it wasn't like a kind of $1 million success story for me to watch. It was something that was actually more improved than my quality of life. It was more aspirational than what I was doing, but it wasn't too far away. It wasn't like out of reach.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
so relatable to see like a role model so close to home who was like
Yeah.
close to my age group. It wasn't like, I don't know, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. I wasn't watching those kind of motivational videos. I was watching someone who was like one or two rungs above me. And I found that incredibly useful.
Yeah, man, I see what you mean, and it's like similar to a lot of content that I used to watch. So I would watch a guy before I made YouTube videos called Sean Thompson, and he would literally do the same thing. Yeah,
Oh, you've just opened up Pandora's box. What happened to that guy?
apparent. So this is a funny story, actually. I don't know. I might be spreading fake news, but he was like Gymshark's first athlete, I think.
Yeah.
But my ex-girlfriend was actually friends with him from school, so they knew each other. And I don't know if I'm making this up. They were definitely friends. They definitely like chatted, but I can't remember if I've come to this conclusion or she told me this, or I read it somewhere online. But I believe he took a lot of psychedelic drugs and kind of went west and had a complete 360 on what he wanted to do. I think that's something about as well, because he like shaved his head, and then I looked him up on Facebook, and then he was like living a completely different life, not doing anything on social media. I think maybe because I don't know if he wasn't happy with where he was physically as well, because he was natural and he felt like Brad's always wanted more. God knows.
Oh man, his rise to fame was nuts. Like he was so young as well. He was at university as well when
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
making those videos. And like you said, first Gymshark athlete, hundreds of thousands of views. He was like the very first fitness vlogger, if I remember rightly, that I remember consuming at least.
yeah, man.
No wonder it went to his head, because he's not had those role models before him to advise him or to like find even like digital solace in by consuming their content.
I don't know if it went to his head per se, because I think when you say to your, if someone said to me went to his head, I think like he's become like really egotistical about it. I don't know about that. But maybe it was under a lot of stress. I know there's some controversies as well. Like I think he smoked a joint or something. And then Gymshark were not happy about it. And then I don't know if he was dropped by Gymshark or whatever. But yeah, God knows, man. God knows.
Man, how did you start to deal with like your rapid increase in following? I think if I remember rightly, like the Amigo videos and the transformation videos that you used to post like garnered so many thousands of views that probably
Yeah,
translated into loads of subscribers and followers. How did you deal with that, mate?
I've I've remained level-headed and humble by having a insatiable appetite that nothing is ever good enough. Like I don't feel like I've done shit. In terms of like I do like I love my life. My life is absolutely fantastic. But in all seriousness, yeah, man, it's I don't really. I always think I can do more, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like I think there's like so much more that I could do, like so many more followers that I could gain. I'm like, okay, like I don't even have 1 million on this. Like I've got friends with millions of followers. It's like one at this point. So it's almost like I don't stop to reflect on the successes that I've had, or I kind of I don't meditate on the successes that I've had. I'm not like, yes, I've done it. I'm stopped now. It's the hedonic treadmill of onto another goal, onto another thing. So yeah, man. And the other thing is like it just feels like what people say in terms of getting to a certain place and nothing changing. It is so true. Like surely, like well, sure, superficial things in your life can change. Like you make more money, you can live a bit more comfortably, you can order more takeaways, you can buy things online without having to worry about the cost of things. But ultimately, for me anyway, everything still feels the same. It still feels the same. I still get joy and fulfillment from the same things. So I completely forgot about the question that I'm answering.
How you deal
So
with the following and the subscribers and the rapid
oh yeah, yeah,
inclination
yeah,
of
yeah,
viewers?
yeah. So yeah, so I would say that it's not like I don't look at it and think I've got a lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Does
yeah,
that make sense? And also it doesn't to me it doesn't seem rapid. Like I've been making videos for what like if I've been doing it if we include my first time I picked up a camera for 20 years basically when I was 8. Well no, well not that long. Let's say 18 years. If I started when I was 8, I'm 27 now. So like that's a long time to make videos, man. And then if you factor in the amount of time I've actually made videos on my main channel, maybe what 8 9 years, or 8 years. That's still a long time. So the growth feels pretty slow, and it does feel very superficial. In fact, it's a number on a screen. It's like I don't relate it to real life or a real form of value currency.
Do you remember a single moment or the first moment where you thought, "Oh, fruits of the fruits of my labor have actually paid off"? Where you were maybe invited somewhere, or you got sent a certain product, or you met a certain person. Do you remember the first time you're like, "Holy shit, this is actually taking off"?
Oh, there's different milestones. Um, yeah, there's different milestones. One of them was probably when I trained with Labumba for the first
Oh
time.
man, I remember that guy.
I'm good mates with Labumba, man. I'm good, like he's one of my closest friends now. But like he had 10,000 followers on Instagram, and I was like, holy shit, this guy's the fucking real deal. And then I went and trained with him and was like, fuck, like he's famous, mate. I've just trained with a famous person. Like one day it's gonna be me. And yeah, that was quite funny because obviously it's so it's just, do you know what I mean? It isn't shit in the grand scheme of things. And that's pretty funny. And then the other one was maybe, or a big one for me, was when I first went to an expo of Gymshark. Like that was pretty crazy, because I kind of had that dream. I always wanted to be sponsored by Gymshark, and then I got it. I was like, yeah, fucking sick. Or kind of around that time as I was with the crew. I would say, dude, the body power. When I went with Gymshark for the first time, and like I met everyone that I'd watched on YouTube. Like I met David Lade, I met like Lex Griffin, I met like Matt Ogus and kind of all those guys, and hung out with them for the day and went for a big meal with them. Like that was pretty crazy to me. I was like, holy shit, I'm actually managing to dip my toe into this world that I've always just watched online. You know, like these people are just like from another continent, and I like watching their YouTube videos, and now they're like in front of me and I'm actually doing stuff, and people are grouping me or recognizing me with this group of individuals. And to me, that was just absolutely insane.
That is sick, mate. I remember watching those videos. I remember watching videos of you flying out to America and training with people like David Lade and stuff as well, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, yeah. I stay at Dave's house.
That's mad. I was saying to Rob Lipsett when he was on the podcast, I know you guys are friends.
Yeah,
Like, there's that quote around of what is it? Work so hard that your idols become your rivals. And me and him were like,
yeah,
that's bullshit. Like, work so hard so your idols become your mates.
hell
And
yeah,
like that's like the coldest thing that you can do. Like as a young man, is like befriend your mates through your talent and skill and hard work.
a
Not
hundred
befriend your
percent.
mates, befriend your idols. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, I did. 100%, dude. I feel like something that I've learned as well by doing this is, as cliche as it is, I truly believe that anything is possible in terms of like no matter how out of reach it seems, no matter how ridiculous, like if you put your mind to it and put enough time into it, like you will get there. You will be able to do it. It's like what are the chances that some guy from some like partially crippled boy from some small town in the middle of Cornwall with a population of, I don't know, I think it's a bit bigger now, but it was like 30,000 people like spread out. So like there's absolutely dead in winter. What are the chances that he can go and link up with all of these massive superstars to him that he watches online on the internet, and then become like part of that group or part of that tribe? You know, it's like, and then that actually happens, and you're just like, fuck. It's like what else can I do? I think that's a big one. Like if you're willing to put the hours in, like you can do fucking anything, man.
I believe that a lot. Like one of the things I write down or say to myself every morning as an affirmation is everything is accessible to me. Anything is accessible to me. And
Mm.
that does sound like what you're saying and what I'm saying, like kind of almost disillusional. Like it can be seen as like narcissistic and disillusional, but I think it's a healthy disillusion. Like if I'm going to be disillusioned by something, I'd rather it be like positive and optimistic opposed to like being disillusioned by the thought of, oh, I'm just a nobody. There's 7 billion people in this world. I don't really matter. But like some people really think that way. Like, what does it matter? There's 7 billion people in the world, but it seems like you and I share a belief where like we're disillusioned by something positive. Like everything's accessible to me. I can do whatever I put my mind to.
In everything, dude, there has to be a constant supply of new people in whatever field, whatever it is. Like people are always getting recycled. You know, people grow old and die. We are not immortal, so there's always going to be opportunities. Like you can say, "Oh, this industry is so saturated," or "Oh, this and that and that and that," but then there is always going to be new people coming in, and it is the people that have the mindset that they can do it and that it is possible that are going to be the people that occupy those spaces.
Where do you think that mindset came for you in that case?
Maybe ego being a bit of it. Ego, smaller wins, kind of building up to that in terms of, you know, like I said, the whole um just smaller wins, meeting more and more people. Um yeah, man. Maybe having no other option, the like not having that mindset and
Yeah.
being faced with a grim reality, like not being able to accept that, caused me to cultivate that, you know, like not being able to accept that I'm not going to be working some shitty ass dishwashing job for the rest of my life, making £5 an hour and then becoming disabled because I'm on my feet for so long. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder how much of like your condition with your leg has maybe accelerated that because you know that there was a high chance that you maybe couldn't walk if you didn't treat it properly.
Mm.
Um, like your condition can be debilitating to some people, and it seems like you've understood that and just life to the max. Because I see you on like skydiving, jumping off cliffs. I
Mm.
think you got like a motorbike license at one point. Like you're like a monkey on a unicycle with symbols. Like uniquely, all these things are like entertaining, but they're not that special. But when you put them together, they're fucking wild,
Yeah,
and that's what you kind of are. And I've
that's
said that to
funny.
some previous guests, but I think that's what you're like. You can do it
Yeah.
all, and it
A
seems like
hundred,
that may have stemmed
a hundred,
from because your leg, perhaps.
100%. The leg stuff is definitely like, yeah, the everything about my adult life has been determined by that. Like it's a very deliberate choice. Like I know that I couldn't work a normal job. I know that I couldn't be employed per se in a normal employment. Like I know that there's a lot of things I wouldn't be able to do, and if I've always been aware of that, like since I was in school and a teenager, and I was aware that like if I didn't do something different, then my life would be very grim and like very miserable and not very enjoyable. So I had to build or cultivate a life that caters to that. It's like the pain leading to growth. The example you gave earlier of having to do something because failure is so painful and not an option.
Can I ask about your lymphedema, mate? Like, can
Yeah,
you
of
explain
course,
to the
whatever
listener,
you want.
like what you learned about, like when you learned you had it and what it is and what effects it's had on your life?
Yeah, so basically it's a it's degenerative. So over, it's not like when I say degenerative, you'll probably think of someone like Parkinson's is gonna, die very in the not so distant future. It's more like it's degenerative to my mobility and not curable. So there's nothing they can do to cure it or make it better at the minute. And then it's just meant to gradually get worse as you get older. And what it is the way I explain it to people is starting from like a very basic level. You have your lymphatic system, which is almost like we know about our veins and our vascular system. It's almost like a very small or a miniature system of veins that go around our body and kind of lie in similar areas to where our veins and capillaries might be. And then it basically, rather than it carrying around blood, it carries around tissue fluid. So it carries around lymphatic fluid, clear lymphatic fluid. And that's actually the way that, going into it too much, but the way that that's formed is it's as a byproduct from blood. So our blood will leave our capillaries, go into our cells, and then it will basically form this lymphatic fluid. And the lymphatic fluid is involved in your immune system, is involved in the removal of waste products. So this is what the lymphatic system is involved in this. Swelling. So if you bang your arm and it swells up, it's going to be lymphatic fluid that is like cause that swelling. It's not blood, unless you have a hematoma. So like it's pretty important. And it's also involved in things like relating to removal of cancerous cells, etc., etc. So you need it basically. And in my body, so it's like a one-way system. In my body, I've got damage to the lymphatic system where it doesn't function properly, so it doesn't flow properly. This particularly affects my left leg. So it basically means that the lymphatic fluid it starts as blood, so it comes out of the blood. The blood goes into my leg, and then when the lymphatic fluid is formed, it can't leave properly. So it means that I'll get swelling in my leg, a whole left leg. It makes you prone to infection if I cut it, and a plethora of other things. And then this problem extends up into my groin, inguinal region, by my kidneys as well, kind of like below my kidneys in that groin region down on my left side. And yeah, man, it basically, a lot of different people suffer in different ways, but the biggest one for me is just swelling on the leg. So I have to wear a compression support on my leg 24/7 to manage the swelling. Which basically looks like a big black suspender, and that kind of squeezes everything together, stops it from swelling up. And then as well, like I said, if I cut it, I get issues. If I'm standing up stationary, I get big problems. So the leg will like swell quite a bit, so I can't spend too long on my feet. And I have to sleep with it elevated at night. I have to raise it every single night. And then I have to wear the leg support pretty much every single day. And it's kind of like, if you let it get bad, then you just dig the hole deeper and deeper for yourself. So what can happen is the excess lymphatic fluid in the limb can cause something called fibrosis, which is basically a buildup of scar tissue. So like over time, what can happen is you gradually get the build up, the skin gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker as more and more fibrosis builds up. And then that will eventually decrease lymphatic function more and more and more and more. And it kind of has this like negative snowball effect where you can end up with something like elephantitis, like the elephant man with his big ass, grotesque looking limbs. So yeah, that's basically that. And there's it's just quite nasty, mate. Like you can get things called, what's it called? Is it like a lymph? You can get things happening as well. Like for example, you can have like a permanent leaking of lymphatic fluid from your leg if like you open it up, and it'll just never heal, and you'll just have like a soaking wet foot that's prone to infection, or leg that just constantly leaks for the rest of your life. I've had my toenail removed as well on that foot because the swelling gave me an ingrown toenail, but I'm not too bothered about that. And yeah, man, that's pretty much lymphedema 101. It can a lot of people have it. It's more common in people. So there's primary and secondary lymphedema. Secondary lymphedema is from a injury or surgery. So normally, if a woman gets a mastectomy, or a man even gets a mastectomy, then that can cause lymphedema when you actually get lymph nodes removed, or a lot of cancer surgeries like lymphomas, things that affect the lymphatic system. If they get removed, lymph nodes removed during surgery, that can give you lymphedema as well. Or if you're just unlucky, like a very small percentage of people are, like myself, then it can be caused from like a genetic basis and just appear at some stage in your life.
Mate, thanks for giving me such a rundown of that. I didn't realize how severe it really was, and like what caused it and some of the after effects of it. Since I've followed you online, you've always shared so openly and transparently like your condition. You've never shied away from it. You never have seemed embarrassed by it or let it hold you back. And one of the things I noticed about your content is that you've like had multiple surgeries where you've like, so your whole world is fitness and physique, or has been in the past, and you've built like such a great rig, and you've become shredded and put on a lot of weight through lifting weights, and then you'll all of a sudden have to go for a random surgery and then lose it all and then bounce back time and time again. I don't know how you do it, mate. How you continually bounce back from those low points.
I would say it's easier. It's easier to do that than it is to get somewhere and keep improving, because when you've had something, when you've had a glimpse of something that you've always wanted, and it's like within your grasp, or you've had that for a little bit, you've had a taste of it, and then it all gets taken away from you. My mentality is, right, fuck it, like let's get this back like ASAP, you know, and that really motivates me to work and do it. And also, dude, I'm aware as well that people might be going through similar shit, and then I can either I can either be a victim or a victor. I can be a victim of my circumstances and cry about how difficult my life is and why I haven't got normal functioning legs, and then just roll over and die and do absolutely nothing. Or I can be a victor and not adopt a victim's mentality and like, okay, look at what I've got, play the hand that I've been dealt, and then create the best thing I possibly can with the cards that I've been given.
And I think by doing that and by showcasing it online, that's why recently, I hope you don't mind me sharing, that you had a transplant in Paris, and you had such a large GoFundMe raised for you because so many people were so like willing and eager to help you. And I think it's because you've been so transparent about it online.
Oh yeah, dude, it's fucking nuts. I had people like, obviously everyone, monetary amounts are different for everyone, but I had some people like donate like $1,000, bro. It's fucking insane.
How much was that transplant? Do you mind me asking?
Yeah, no, not at all. It was about 15K.
Wow.
So like it's just apples and oranges, isn't it? To some people, like that's gonna be nothing. To other people, it's gonna be loads of money. But yeah, I could have done. I needed the help with it, and I'm glad I did, to be honest. Just because I was in a position where I could have scraped together the funds for the first surgery, and I would have managed to do it. But then I think initially it's meant to cost around, or I think the original quote was maybe 10 or 12. But it came out at about 50. I have spent 15 on it so far, and I might need another one potentially down the line as well, because it's not a matter of, oh, you're fixed now. It's like a matter of, okay, 2 years to wait to see if the transplant grows in place and see what it does, see if it improves things, and if not, I'd have to go for subsequent surgeries. But yeah, dude, I've always been pretty open about it, and I think like I've just tried to be authentic, like. A lot of people that I really like, and this is what I come to realize on social media and on YouTube, like Louis Armstrong. I fucking love Louis Armstrong in real life and on social media. It's just because he's real. Like he'll tell you if he's having a shit day or he's having an argument with his girlfriend, and it's like relatable. It's not fabricated. It's not authentic. It's raw and it's real. And I think people respect honesty, and people respect being told the truth, even if it isn't always like covered in glitter and snowflakes, glitter, and you know, some shiny shit.
What was that transplant like? Why did that have to be done like privately and opposed to being done on the NHS or done locally?
I was gonna tell you some elaborate lie about how it's all a elaborate scheme for me to get 15K from my followers. Didn't even have a fucking transplant. I just went to the Maldives. No, so
you've never even had lymphedema. It's been an
yeah, well, I've just
a
it doesn't
massive
even
one for 10
exist.
years.
I've just made the condition up entirely, and all you fucking idiots listening have just believed that like 10 minutes of explanation. Yeah, nah, dude. So basically, I've had what's called a lymph node transplant. So this is kind of it's very cutting edge. I think there's one clinic or one hospital that does it in the UK. It's private. And there's like a handful of others. So there's a couple of treatments for lymphedema. So the easiest way to think of like lymphedema, like the most simplistic thing, is it's like you have a blockage in a pipe, basically, and then the water can't flow through the pipe. The issue is that everything is so intricate and small, and it's like microscopic, like these problems. So this is like a bit more common. You can do something called a lymph node, a lymphatic bypass, which is similar to like a bypass surgery that you do if you had a heart attack, where what you'll do is you'll take where the lymph node is, the lymphatic vessels are blocked, and then you'll sew the lymphatic vessel to a vein. So then it kind of bypasses the blockage and it drains into a vein, and then that can alleviate some people in certain cases. But this has kind of been around for a good few years, and it's doesn't work in a lot of people. Like the type of lymphedema I have, primary, which is genetic based, is notoriously difficult to treat. Like a lot of the treatment is all in mechanical cancer, like kind of lymphedema that's been acquired through that because it's just more black and white. And I'm not eligible for that anyway. That kind of surgery because I'm screwed. But the surgery that I got, like I said, it's called a lymph node transplant. So what they do is they take some lymph nodes from elsewhere in your body, usually under your armpit by your ribs, because you have lymph nodes throughout your body. They'll do something called a fluoroscopy first, just to make sure that, which basically is a radioactive nuclear medicine technique, as far as I understand, that just shows where the lymphatic channels are, where the lymphatic fluid is, where the lymph nodes are, and then based on that you can kind of determine, okay, I've got like 5 lymph nodes here, say for example, I could probably get rid of 2 of them and everything's going to function fine. So then what they'll do is they'll cut out a few lymph nodes from one region and then implant them into another region in a graft where they're needed, almost like a mini kidney transplant. Like they'll then sew up the blood supply to that tissue, the arteries, the veins. And then the idea is, through like the doctor that did the surgery on me, Dr. Becker in Paris, she's absolutely wonderful. I was gonna say sick, but I didn't. Absolutely sick. She's the person that pioneered the surgery itself, so it's incredibly rare. So I don't really understand how it works. The idea is that like a bit like the roots of a tree, like when the lymph nodes in place, it all lymphatics will grow out from it and assist in the recovery, basically, or making things better, reducing the swelling, reducing the symptoms of lymphedema. And the other question you asked, why don't they get it at the NHS? The NHS, it doesn't exist in the NHS. Like there's very little support. It's quite bad. So like everything, it feels like a battle in terms of like, obviously it's great that I'm able to get, for example, prescriptions and not pay very much. But it's difficult, man. So it's because there's not a lot known about it at all, and it's so rare. Like people that have the condition are pretty much left to their own devices. And if you're diagnosed with it in the UK, the vast majority of people are just going to be told like, wear a compression garment and good luck. Like that's pretty much, and slap them on the back and send them on their way. And there's this like there's this culture or this idea, even if you go to like specialist lymphedema centers like on the NHS, or go to that surgery is bad and surgery will make it worse. So there's like this fear of any kind of surgical intervention, and if you have the condition, like there might be one person listening who has it, there you will be told like not to get surgery and like to stay away from it and to avoid it at all costs, just based on like the premise. Because what they would do previously is, like I talked about earlier, build up of like fibrotic tissue. They would do liposuction on the leg to like actually reduce the volume of of the actual leg when all this tissue is built up, but that can further damage the lymphatics. So like it's always been, don't get surgery. Surgery is bad. So yeah, the NHS basically does the bare minimum and doesn't offer. It's pretty awful. Like something that really the more you know, the worse it gets. So something that really got me was someone that had the surgery before me was this little baby who was like 1 or 2 years old, who had lymphedema in his leg. And Dr. Becker was saying to me, she was like, "Oh yeah, the baby will be completely cured. Like it will have no lymphedema. Like it will be like she's done thousands of these surgeries." And I was just there like, if that same baby got diagnosed with the same condition in the UK, they would live their life with this debilitating condition that would cost the NHS hundreds, if not millions of pounds, and be, for the vast majority of people that have to work on their feet, probably be crippled by the time they're like 30, 40, depending on the severity of it. Yet, if it's in Paris, the baby gets the surgery, I think it's probably for free on the Paris healthcare system, or incredibly cheap because they've got very good healthcare. And the baby won't even know it's had this condition, which would ruin its life in England. It's nuts, man. It's fucking insane.
These sliding door moments are mental, where a person can go like one way or the complete opposite. It's mental that, like, similar to that, by you creating content or picking up a camera like 10 plus years ago, you've built a following that trust you and support you to the point that you were supported in getting the surgery, and now you have your own funds that you can get the second if you need it. But if you never picked up that camera or decided to document your journey, like, you would have probably had the same symptoms that you've got anyway. And now, because of what you've done online, the kind of value that you've provided people and the trust that you've given people, they feel somewhat generous to support you. And because of that, I mean, I know you're hardworking anyway, so you'd have found a way to make that money if you did something completely different. But it's crazy how by just picking that camera up for the first time has led to like positive health outcomes, bizarrely, 10 years on.
Oh, yeah, dude, I often think about this. I just try not to think into it too deeply, but it's just crazy the butterfly effect that things have. But then are we backstepping and looking for events to kind of
push rationalize?
Yeah, there's so many things day to day. I think it's just like a black hole that's not worth delving into, because there's so many little things that are gonna that we've done in the past that drastically influence or the outcome of wherever you are. Like me and you sitting here right now, I'm sure you could have done one thing differently in your past life, and this never would have happened, this conversation.
Definitely, man. I do think we overthink it. I think we find comfort in making sense of the past when sometimes it is just what it is. I want to bring the kind of tone of the podcast a bit lighter, man. We've been going into your story, going into the health stuff. I want to talk about when you would sneak into festivals. Like, I used to love those videos. Like, that was like the boldest and most brash things that you ever posted, mate. Like, where did that come about? Were you just too skint for a ticket? You decided, let's see if we can get away with this, and then it just became an addiction.
I think it was actually the I don't know, man. So it wasn't. The main reason was the thrill of it, or it's like the thrill of it, you know, like the. Let me just change the light real quickly. There we go. Yeah, the main reason was the excitement of it, and so much goes into it, and the adrenaline rush from it is fucking insane. Like, I would get like my heart rate would be double doing that than it would be me skydiving, for example. Like, it's absolutely nuts. But when we were doing that as well, like all the festival break-ins that we were doing and filming and making videos of, like, we didn't have a lot of money as well. So it's like that was the other thing. Not being able to afford to go to festivals, wanting to go to the festivals. So we would I would get my mate Tom, and we would split petrol or whatever, and then drive it to the festival, and then make some YouTube content and break in. But the main reason was the actual adventure and the journey itself of actually doing this like ridiculous thing. And some of the stories, man, or just like a lot of people thought it was fake. And we didn't fake. I was trying to think if we had, but we did not fake a single festival break, and everything is legit. And some of the ways you got in were absolutely ridiculous.
Can you tell me some stories from the festival break-ins? What was your favorite one?
Probably the craziest or one of the craziest was, it's just weird, man. You realize as well, kind of backpedaling a little bit, you realize how much confidence comes into play. As in, if you have confidence, if you are somewhat a figure of authority, if you're sure about what you're saying and the way that you say it, and and just like walk, talk, and act confidently, people aren't going to question you. Most mental one was probably Creamfields. That was probably the craziest one, where we drove in with no credentials, nothing, through the stage or the artist entry round like the backstage. The security and police pulled the car over. They made us get out the car. They searched the entirety of the car for like drugs and like sniffer dogs and everything. I think it's just maybe a policy going into the backstage area. And like we were just like making jokes like, oh yeah, don't find all the cocaine we've got under the spare wheel, officer, like ha 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 ha. and they didn't even bother to check if we had credentials to actually be in there. So they, you know, because what sort of person is going to drive to the most secure point at a festival and then be like making jokes and laughing, and then not even have the right credentials to get in there? I think I'm breaking this one into two actually, because the one where we got searched, once we were in there, we then managed to, we would just buy like bulk packs of vinyl wristbands. We then just got random colored vinyl wristbands that look kind of similar. This is the biggest one, dude. I literally did this the other, like a few months ago, probably in, I can't remember when it was, at Printworks. Is you just walk up like you're in a rush, like you're important, with confidence, and like do the opposite of what they expect, and they are gonna let you in. So for example, blank vinyl wristbands, you walk up to security. I've done this countless times. It doesn't always work, but I'd say like 90% of the time it has. You walk up to security, and I will literally like roll back my sleeve like this, put the wristband like this as I'm walking by, like, all right, mate, in his face. It could be the complete wrong wristband, but they're just gonna be like, oh yeah, cool. Like what? Because what sort? They're gonna be looking for people that are shifty, people that are trying to like hide their wrists, like with their mates. Like what sort of person with a fake wristband is going to be like, yeah, here you go, mate. Like literally so they can inspect it. And they're just like, yeah, go through. But yeah, Printworks, man. That's quite funny. I did the same thing with getting into the backs or on the stage at Printworks, because my girlfriend, I've got a lot of friends that are artists, and one of them were playing. And I had like an artist wristband so I could get onto the stage, but she didn't, and was super strict on it. So I tried to like sweet talk, be like, can she come on with me? She's all by herself. Security were like, no. So then we went away for half an hour, came back, and then she didn't even have a band on her wrist, I don't think. No, she didn't even have a band on her wrist. So she just held onto my hand, and then we were like, as we were walking through in a rush, quote unquote, just like, yeah, here you go, mate. Put the band in his face, he shined a torch on it, and then we just kept walking and didn't even realize she didn't have a wristband on. But yeah, dude, that's a pretty crazy one. In terms of, there was one, we did that same thing in Creamfields with high vises, and we walked through the like main entrance. So like this is so bad. This is on YouTube, this one, I think, as well. They're both on YouTube. So and the other thing as well, bro, is when we're doing this, a lot of the time is we'd have like drugs on us. Like I'd have like a fucking couple of pingers or something, some like a bit of MDMA. So it's like the stakes were high, mate. And anyway, so we'd like, there was the big queue to get in, like where they check the security checkpoint, where they check everyone's bags, they check you have the tickets, and they give you a pat down. We put on high vises, we had a blank generic vinyl wristbands, and we just decided to walk straight past the queue, like everyone queuing up. We're like, excuse me, like really loud. Like there's like four of us. I think it was me, Tom, Alex, might be three, maybe one more. I think it was three. We're like, excuse me, coming through, production, like getting everyone out of the way, like causing a bit of like a ruckus. Literally just walk to the front, pushing everyone out the way. Everyone's just letting us through because we're in high vises. And then we get to the security, and there's dogs, a couple of security guards, and I'm like, production, mate, we're running late, we gotta get to the stage. And then we just keep walking. The guy's kind of like yeah, whatever. And then someone shouts at my mate Tom, and he's like, oi, like one of the security guards, and he's like, like you can't be wearing that high vis. And then I think Tom's like shitting himself at this point, and he's like, oh, you can't be wearing that high vis. Like Tom turns around, looks at him. The other security guard that we just walked past just goes like, mate, they work here. let him go. He's like, mate, they work here. And then he's like, oh, sorry, mate. And then we just fucking walk on our way into the festival, and that is that, man.
Man, you've lived like 9 lives, man, with all the stories that you have to tell. I want to move on to now. Think about this, is nuts. You started your own like supplement company, Wobbs,
Okay,
as
yeah,
well, and you started a
yeah.
whole movement and cult as well. Tell me more about that.
Oh man, yeah. So I started a supplement company. That's fucking sick. Wobbs pre-workout, we called it, and it was kind of like I kind of used the term Wobbs based off the idea of the sound like a speaker makes at a festival, or a sound system when you're mashed up. I was like, that'd be funny. Just call it that. And yeah, dude, started this company. Wanted just to make this really, really well efficacious dosed pre-workout that actually worked. Ultra high stim, hence why it's called Wobbs Ultra. Blew your face off basically, and just was kind of bored of like stuff like my protein was coming out with, and like the a lot of the pre's on the market that were what they called proprietary blends that didn't really do much. Like, I wanted something that actually felt like you were on drugs, or actually, you know, did something. So started that one a good few years ago, man.
And mate, you were selling out all the time. I can never get my hands on it to try it.
Oh, bro, it went wild. It went really, really well. In the first year of trading, we did very good. Very good.
Why did it come to an end, man?
It's nothing too exciting. So it's a couple of reasons. Number one was the ingredients that we had in were shipped from China. So it's manufactured in the UK. It's put together in the UK, but the actual raw ingredients are from China. And then during COVID, it's getting harder and harder to get stuff. There were clampdowns on certain ingredients in there as well. So certain things were like, I can't remember who they were, but they were coming after certain ingredients, which were like the core ingredients of the product, things that made it what it was. And then I had a bit of a falling out with my business partner as well. We didn't see eye to eye. We kind of wanted to take things in different directions, and then it just got to a point where we're just both like, yeah, we're gonna have to let's sack this off. It's becoming like, with factoring in these things, and factoring in the way that it's going, like, probably going to be not sustainable. It's going to become something that neither of us want it to be. So then we made a decision to stop trading. But it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I didn't walk away with, like, we did in the first year. Again, like, businesses do a lot better. Obviously, this is terrible. I think it's gross. We grossed is total money in, not factoring anything else, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we grossed over 6 figures, which is pretty mad. But obviously the business is a separate entity to myself, and then we just made some poor decisions and got fucked over by some people and like websites and other things. And then, yeah, bro, like the final payout I got from it was like 2 grand. So lessons have been learned, mate. It just goes to show that I am capable of doing that, and I think it's just a matter of like chipping at it and trying.
Remember we were talking about earlier that everything and everybody's accessible to us. If you work hard enough, you can get what you want. Like, who would have thought little Mo from Cornwall with his 2 sisters and his single mom with this kind of debilitating degenerative condition from such a small town would go on to like create 6 figures in a supplement company?
Well,
but it seems like this is never... iterative, man.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, well, I never actually touched the 6 figures, sadly.
And then, I mean, honestly, you've lived 9 lives. Like, it seems like what you do, you pick a domain, you excel at it, and then you just get onto the next and continue to do that. Like a life of continuous improvement, continuous novelty, continuous intensity almost. I'm just thinking about the time you got choked out by John Jones now. Like, so many different random thoughts. Like, I get... How the hell did you get choked out by John Jones? How the hell did that come around? That's mental.
Yeah, bro, that's a good one. I actually, that's, if I meet, like, I got recognized quite a lot for that afterwards, for the guy that's choked up by John Jones. And also, like, I met, it's like 2-3 years ago now, pretty like 3 years ago. And like, I'll meet someone and it will maybe come up in a conversation. 1 second. Let me ignore that. There we go. I'll meet someone, it'll come up in a conversation. And then I'll be like, or I'll mention it, like we're talking about cool stuff that's happened, and then they would have seen the video. They'd be like, "No way, that was you!" And I was like, "Yeah, that happened quite recently in Finland, actually." But yeah, man. Basically, long story short, we're both with. So I'm with Vanquish. I think John's no longer with Vanquish. But we were in FIBO in Germany, which is like a fitness expo, and we were on the same booth. So like you meet and greet people, and yeah, it's just like we're both athletes on the same booth. Obviously, John is a completely different caliber to me. Like I'm hardly an athlete. Well, technically, I'll take it. And yeah, and my manager Rambir, absolute legend. He always like we'd fuck with each other, and he was like fucking me, being like trying to like scare me, being like, Mo, I'm gonna get John Jones to choke you out on the booth, blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And then I didn't actually know. This isn't like me trying to be like, oh, I didn't even know who it was. I didn't really follow MMA, so I didn't actually know who John Jones was. I knew that obviously from VQ that it was like the light heavyweight champion of the world, or it was like a big deal in MMA. But I didn't follow that closely. I knew McGregor, and I didn't really watch it, so I didn't actually realize how big of a big deal he was, which was quite funny. Because afterwards I realized he was a pretty fucking big deal. And then so I was like, I can't remember if my manager or me. I think it might be my manager. Maybe asked him, was like, "Do you want to choke out? Or would you choke out Mo? Like choke him unconscious?" And he looked at like us or my manager like we're fucking nuts. And he was like, let me check with my manager, because John Jones' manager was there. And then I was like, okay, this is definitely not happening then. Like, there's no way his manager's gonna let him fucking choke me out. And then he looked at his manager, this fucking American dude, and he was like, yeah, like hell yeah, let's do it. And I was like, well, it's on. And then long story short, sat me down, got me in a rear naked choke, and then choked me to the point of unconsciousness. It wasn't weird, because you'd think like there'd be some like panic, or because it's not. I think it's the restriction of blood to the brain rather than the build up. So the urge to breathe comes from a increase in carbon dioxide rather than a depletion of oxygen. So that's what makes you, if you hold your breath, that makes you want to go. That's why you want to breathe in. It's not oxygen, it's carbon dioxide. I think that's also linked to that feeling of panicking if you can't breathe. So because it is my blood being stuffed to my brain, I was literally just there, pretty chill, relaxed. And next thing I know, I'm on the floor with my legs up, feeling like I've come out of the most intense acid trip of my life.
That's mental. And what was John Jones' reaction to that? Because he does that for a living. Was he just like, oh, there's a kid knocked out? Or like, whereas I can imagine everyone else around you was like panicking and trying to like make sure you're okay. Whereas he's probably just sitting chill.
Kind of. He knew what to do. He's obviously choked people out in the past in jiu-jitsu. I don't think it's a common thing. Like I very much doubt he would do it. But I don't think he'd done it before to someone like in that kind of like someone that's been like, oh yeah, he choked me out. Like it didn't seem like he had, but obviously he's been done a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so he like put my legs up, knew what to do, and just like knew that I wasn't gonna die. And then I was like, came to complete like, holy fuck, like it felt insane. Gave him a hug and was like, mate, that was insane. And he was like,
did you get a chance to hang around with John Jones much, or like talk to him? What was he like?
He's a really cool dude, like a really, really cool dude. He's just like I know sometimes I see like things like the media going off at him about stuff. Like I don't really watch the news or look into it. But from my interactions with him, seems like a fucking really chill guy, like funny dude. Just seems like a real down to earth, nice guy. I think at one point there was like a slim chance I could go to his ranch and shoot guns. Like, my manager was talking about like arranging it and sorting it out, especially when it was with Vanquish, but gutted, it never happened, man. It never happened. We still follow each other though, so maybe one day it'll happen. But I think the fact, like, going off on a bit of a tangent, the fact that I wasn't really aware of who he was, I just spoke to him like a normal person, and like obviously he likes that. Like when people don't like to be put on a pedestal at all times, they like to be spoke to like a normal human that they are. So I think I get on. I'll meet people that are, I don't know, in certain places, or like artists or whatever. I'll just speak to them completely normally, be it I'm oblivious to who they are, or like I don't really care so much, and then I'd get on with people quite well due to that.
That's sick, man. I hope he makes an appearance on your podcast, which you've seemed to have relaunched. Tell me about the podcast, man. Why have you relaunched that? Why did you start it? Why did you give it up? And why are you bringing it back?
So the reason why did I give it up in the end? I can't really remember why I originally gave it up. I think like you can pretty relate to this actually. Just I didn't feel like there was I didn't feel like it was having a lot of impact. Like people would share it, people would message me about it and stuff, but I felt like there isn't a section for comments, there isn't a section for likes per se. Like very obviously, there isn't like that system to give you dopamine when someone's commented. It'll be like, oh wow, that's an amazing podcast, Mo. It's like the feedback for a podcast is very small, and I felt like I wasn't having a very big impact. I felt like I was wasting my time. I felt like I wasn't really doing much with it, so I decided to stop it just because I felt like it was just like a drop in the ocean in terms of what I did. And then the reason I brought it back is because I've always had like an inkling to bring it back. Like I've really enjoyed doing them, which is one of the reasons that I'm on your podcast right now. Like I like talking to people. I just think how often do you get to have a conversation with someone that's like just a conversation with someone without distraction? It's very rare in this day and age. And that I would after I stopped doing it as well. I would still get like 1-2 years after it, people messaging me about when's the podcast coming back? When are you going to do a podcast? I would get people like literally 2 years after, like messaging me like on a weekly basis. And I was like, this is fucking insane. And then I had the surgery come up and I was like, all right, if I raise the money, I'll guarantee I do 10 episodes. And then we'll go from there. So that's kind of the reason, man. I just wanted to, it's multifaceted. I wanted to create something that was impactful and could benefit people. I wanted to create something where I could kind of speak because it's selfishly like therapy for myself. I find just like being able to talk. And then I'm a big fan of podcasts myself and like stuff like, for example, I really like Joe Rogan. And the reason I like Joe Rogan is it's just two people having a conversation. And it's just like two real people talking about stuff. And I wanted to do that and go down that route of just having conversations with cool people that I find that do interesting things that I like. And if someone can benefit from that as well, then that's fucking fantastic.
I like that, man. It seems like your podcast mindset is like matured from the first time to the second time. Like the first time it was like very like data driven, like how many downloads, how many plays. And then the second time around now that you're starting again, it's because you just want to explore people and like think out loud and learn about yourself and think about the world and connect with different people. It seems like the reason you started at both times are very different.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think as well, I'm trying to do it because I enjoy it. That's another thing. I've got this crippling thing where I'm on a constant quest for purpose. Like I want everything to be. I feel like sometimes I feel like I don't have one thing. Like I don't have this thing that is my purpose. And I know that it's something that's completely fabricated and the idea of purpose is completely mental. But it's like I feel like at times I've always felt like throughout my life I don't have that. I felt like, oh yeah, I've started to go in a certain direction, but then what is it? Like what am I, you know?
I found purpose in this podcast being a podcaster. I often introduce myself as a podcaster if I'm in a social situation, but whereas you've got so many things going on. And I can imagine the first time around where you were balanced, like probably RET at the time, your online coaching brand, WOBs and everything else. Like podcasting takes so much bandwidth, so much energy, so much time. And I can imagine you didn't really have as much time and identity to pour into it as you do now.
Yeah. There's a limited. Something I've come to realize is there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so much time that you can spend doing something, and if you try and do everything or many different things, then you're pretty much everything is guaranteed to fail. And it's like the people that do well are known for one thing, like golf, Tiger Woods. I don't know, golf, Tiger Woods, car racing, Michael Schumacher. It's not like Tiger Woods, that golf guy, and the guy that makes YouTube videos, or Michael Schumacher, the guy that played or raced cars and then DJ'd. It's like that one thing. But I might be completely wrong on this. I kind of feel like you have to go through phases of trying things and then you kind of settle into something and then give up the other things, and you have to decide which is the most meaningful.
I think so too. Like I'm thinking about two guests that have been on the podcast that have kind of brought this to life. A psychologist called Dr. Meg J. You might have seen her TED talk online. It's got like 10+ million views. And she's got a book called The Defining Decade, Your 20s and How to Make the Most of Them. And she basically describes your 20s as like a explorative phase where you basically collect so many pieces of information through experiences. And you have a really multifaceted identity where you're constantly doing loads of different things. And then as you enter your 30s, you then pick the one thing that you're really great at, or you really enjoy, or both, and then become known for that thing. So I think
Yeah.
we shouldn't put too much pressure on ourselves in our 20s to be the one thing. But then when Seth Godin came on the podcast, he was like, aim to become a superstar at one thing, because you never care if your dentist is also good at filing his taxes.
Yes, I read his book actually. That's what, yeah, that's why I know the name.
Is that Seth Godin, The Dip? Is that the book called The Dip?
Oh no, maybe it's some. I've read The Dip, so maybe we get mixed up. But there's literally a book called The One Thing.
The One Thing. Oh, I've not
Is
come
it not
across that.
Oh, it's really good. It's basically exactly what I was just talking about. Fantastic book, dude.
One of the books that I read because of you that you posted it a while ago, I think I may have DM'd and asked you what it was. It was The Four Agreements.
Yes,
really loved that book. I remember that was like your Bible.
It's a bit like, yeah, it's a good, it's good. I feel like it's a bit iffy, but there's definitely some takeaways from there.
Awesome.
Let me.
Mate, I know we've been on.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, The One Thing is by someone called Gary Keller. I do recommend it. It's great. Yeah, it's good.
Awesome, mate. I know I've had you for an hour and a half. I know you've probably got food to get, people to see. I'm being very precious and selfish with your time. If you were to leave the listener, and given that the listener is an archetype of 16, 17, 18-year-old Mo who's trying to make sense of the world, if you go back and talk to that version of Mo or give him advice, what would it be, do you think?
There's a couple of things I'd say to myself. The first one is going to be, it doesn't matter. So kind of don't sweat the small stuff. The things that you think are big problems, or the things that you think are big issues, or the worries and concerns that you have don't fucking matter. Like, it always works itself out in the end. There's no reason to worry about the opinions of people who you don't aspire to be like unless, and I feel like unless someone's on, and unless the only advice, if you really want to go into it, the only advice you should take, or the only people's opinions you should really be bothered by, are those who are doing the things that you want to do. Like, why the fuck would you listen to everyone else or anyone else? And it's very hard to detach from that, because we are human at the end of the day, and we have some kind of like social filter where we want to be accepted by the tribe. But you've got to do your best to kind of overcome that judgment and not give a fuck. Use it or lose it as well as a massive one, physically and mentally, but mentally being the biggest one. Like, if you want to change, or if you want to do something differently or become someone different, and you actively take actionable steps to get to that point where you're becoming more like the person you want to be, if you stop doing those things, then you will regress to the previous person that you want to be. I think that's a big one as well, man. Like stepping out, and then stepping outside the comfort zone, like every opportunity. I think around, I don't know, I feel like I didn't actually discover that at that time. Like, you should, if you're met with something that scares you, you should always lean into fear. It's like conditioning your brain to do those things that scares you, to take risks, to step into discomfort, and it's ultimately going to pay off. If you want anything more than a mundane life, then you have to be willing to do what other people aren't. And then also, one more thing I want to add to old Mo actually is, when it comes to like confidence, meeting girls, like insecurities, everyone's insecure about something. You know, there's no one that isn't insecure about anything at all. And you could be the most perfect or perceived perfect person in the world, and you're always going to be unhappy about something. I think that the majority of insecurity, well, obviously insecurities in your own head, the majority of people are too self-absorbed and don't fucking care to actually be bothered by your shit. And then if you want to get over that insecurity, you have to deliberately pursue it. Like, do the things that scare you. Like, go into that, step outside of your comfort zone. If you're insecure about your hairline, shave your hair off, you know, or speak to someone about your hairline. Or if you're insecure about some black thing you wear on your leg, like I used to be very insecure about it, wear shorts. Do the things that you fear the most, and that is the way how you'll get over them. I think so many people are in this mindset, or they just love their little comfortable nest. They're too scared to leave. They're too scared to do anything that that's gonna disturb that peace and comfort that they have, and then nothing is gonna fucking change. You're gonna remain the same mentally. And if you wanna actually grow and become something different and become something better and transform, the only people that are going to do that are going to be the people that actually are willing to address and like seek that pain and discomfort head on.
I love it, mate. I think that might be my trailer clip for the podcast. Sound advice, mate. It's been great to have you on. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I've watched you for 6, 7, 8+ years, and it's going back to that sentiment of work so hard until your idols become your mates. Like, this is a testament to that, mate. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming along. If we're to signpost anyone to your work online, where can they find you, mate?
Yeah, mate. Thank you for inviting me, first of all, dude. And it's been a pleasure to speak to you over the last hour and a half. But Mo Samuels, MOSEMULS on Instagram. I might not come up. I don't know yet. I've been shadow banned for some people for a while. Or Mo Samuels on YouTube. And then coaching, fitness stuff, physique incubator is where I'm at.
Awesome, mate.
Fantastic, dude. Thank you.